Please turn your attention to the front of the patio for the presentation by the U.S. Navy.
Navy, post.
a grateful nation. Please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service. Sorry for the loss.
On behalf of Bill Womack and his family, thank you to Brent and Andre for their service today. We'll be starting our program very soon. Thank you.
Picking up lots of forget-me-nots. You make me feel so young.
Good evening. Good evening, friends. Yes, it's a celebration of life. I'm Bertram Johnson. It's my honor to welcome you to this celebration of life for Dr. William Womack, who is affectionately known to all of us as Bill. Over the course of the evening, you will receive words of tribute and acclaim for the numerous contributions he has given to the world as a medical doctor, a leader in the field of psychiatry and mental health, a lover and patron of the arts, and as a deeply loved father and friend. Our plan is that this program will end at about 8:30, and we hope that you will stay behind for dessert and music afterwards. I will also say that the food trucks are here and available until 8 o'clock, and so if at any point someone gets hungry or needs another drink, please feel free. This is a family event, and feel free to move and act as you would at any other family gathering. As we all know, Bill possessed a brilliant mind and an equally beautiful and brilliant and compassionate heart. He rose from humble beginnings in a time not far different from today, when African Americans were relegated to lesser roles in society and opportunities to succeed and flourish were constricted by the prevailing customs and laws of the day. But Bill was blessed to grow up in a family and community that believed in his potential and saw him for all the marvelous and amazing things that he could be. Bill's legacy brings to mind a quote from the famed African-American author and civil rights leader Maya Angelou, who said, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." Bill Womack embodied this quote in every aspect of his life. And this country and the world are healthier, gentler, safer, and more beautiful because of who he was. Because music was such an important part of his life, I'd like to invite noted Seattle vocalist Ben Black and deep personal friend to come with a vocal tribute on the theme of mystery and wonder dedicated to Bill. Please welcome Ben.
Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glint on snow. I am the sun on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. As as you awake in the morning hush. I am a swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am a soft starlight at night. I am the rising eastern sun. In my end I have just begun. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I do not die. In my end is a beginning. I have only just begun. I am deeper than the ocean, I am brighter than the sun. I am endless shades of color. I am as constant as the air. I am love, I am truth. I am free. I am flowing like a river. I'm as open as the sky. I am older than creation. You will find me if you try. I'm as graceful as a raven, flying swiftly through the air. I am love, I am truth, I am free. I am mystery, I am wonder, I am darkness, I am light. I am struggle, sorrow, death, life, endless shades of color. I'm as constant as the air. I am love, I am truth, I am free. I give you this one thought to keep. I am with you still, I do not sleep. Do not think of me as gone. I am with you still in each new dawn.
Thank you, Ben. Our program will continue in a few minutes. Friends, as you take your seats or stand or whatever feels most comfortable at this moment, I'd like you to turn your attention to these words, a brief testament to the life and work of our friend Bill Womack. They're somewhere around here. Oh, they're on my face. Middle age, that happens. Middle age, right there. Yay. 51, ladies and gentlemen, 51. On my face. Just your little brother, that's all. So. William Martin Womack was born in Lynchburg, Virginia on June 14, 1936, to Fanny Smith, a teacher, and Samuel Womack, a school principal. At the age of 5, he announced he wanted to be a doctor and soon began plotting the course to reach his goal. Bill was an avid reader and excelled in academics. He graduated as valedictorian from both his high school at the age of 16 and from Lincoln University at the age of 20. At Lincoln, he was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. He sang in the Glee Club, performed in plays, and was part of the chemistry and philosophy clubs. He was named most likely to succeed and also earned the title of Mr. Lincoln for his academic success and charismatic personality. The 1954 Supreme Court Brown versus Board of Education ruling ended racial segregation in public schools in the U.S., making way for his acceptance to the University of Virginia Medical School in 1957. He was one of the first African American medical students to attend UVA. Despite the challenges and obstacles of racism, he made the dean's list and received his medical degree in 1961 at the age of 25. A UVA professor encouraged Bill to apply for residency in psychiatry at the University of Washington. Of course, he was accepted and was again one of the first and only African Americans in his department. At the UW, he met a young French-Canadian nurse, Mariette Poirier. They married in 1965. After his residency, Bill joined the Navy. During the war with Vietnam, he was stationed in Guam, where he served as senior psychiatrist at the Naval Hospital. He was later assigned to Treasure Island in San Francisco and attained the rank of lieutenant commander. In 1969, he returned to Seattle as the first African American faculty member at the UW's Department of Psychiatry. The following year, he and Mariette adopted their beloved daughter, Lisette. And the world changed. Bill had a remarkable career in child psychiatry, offering his numerous talents and wisdom at the University of Washington, Harborview Medical Center, Echo Glen's Children's Center, Seattle Children's Hospital, and Odessa Brown Children's Clinic. Bill served as division chief for psychiatry at both Harborview and Seattle Children's. He was a leading advocate for juvenile justice for homeless youth and the rights and care of LGBTQIA youth and adults. Bill officially retired in 2007 and became Professor Emeritus of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at the UW. In retirement, Bill continued to work as a consultant. He was actively involved in revising and updating the 5th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, published in 2013. Bill was recognized as Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association, as well as Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. If you know anything about Bill, you know he loved the arts, music, especially jazz, and he was a significant patron of arts organizations throughout Seattle. Before he moved into Horizon House Retirement Community in 2015, Bill was a masterful cook and avid wine connoisseur who loved sharing great meals and great company. Despite health challenges later in his life, he continued to enjoy going to restaurants and shows, taking trips with friends and family to Brazil and France, Portugal, and the Caribbean. He will be remembered for his tremendous contributions to the field of psychiatry, but not to be overlooked are the innumerable qualities that endeared each of us to him. His generosity, his compassion and patience, his humor, his ability to see the positive side of any situation, as well as his unforgettable laugh. Bill died peacefully on November 29th, 2020. He was cremated on December 8th. He was 84 years old. He is survived and greatly missed by his daughter, Lizette, his son-in-law, Will, and grandson, Zane, as well as cousins Marshall McDonald, Deborah Womack, Philip and Scott Branford, his former wife, Mariette, extended family, and countless friends and colleagues. There is so much more that could be said of this giant of a human being, but no words can truly capture what his unparalleled life and contributions mean to those of us who are here today and the countless others whose lives have been made richer and more whole by his work, wisdom, and care. As a shared act of tribute, let's all take a moment of silence to reflect on how our lives have been made better, have been changed, and richer by knowing Dr. William M. Womack. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Bill, we love you. We celebrate you, and we will do all that we can to carry on your legacy and reflect your light throughout the world. And let's all say, may it be so. May it be so. For our first presenter, I'd like to invite Chris Varley from the UW Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences for a brief presentation.
I don't know how I'm going to match that or get close to it. Thank you for your comments. All right. So Bill and I worked together for 30 years. We're on the faculty of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences since a long time ago. And I have a story to tell at the end, and my wife and I may be the only people who know part of this story, so Elizabeth may, but it's a poignant reflection on your dad. I have information to share about the accomplishments of your father. After coming here, it was mentioned, and training in the Northwest, who knows why he came here from Virginia, it still stuns me, but he made this his home, and he completed his training here, and after he completed his tour of duty with the Navy, he joined our faculty as the first, and at that time only, African American on the faculty. And really, from the get-go, he was appointed to positions of leadership within our department. And some of those were mentioned, but they began right away. He was named the head of the outpatient psychiatry department at the University of Washington Medical Center. He was the executive director of Harborview Community Mental Health Center. He was the head of the division of community psychiatry at Harborview. And so Bill knew the rules and was an artful and engaging leader. Elizabeth will tell you in a moment about the work that he did with all of us, with Elizabeth and me in particular, in child psychiatry, so I'm going to leave that to her. But he had a number of leadership positions within our department, and he was also recognized and participatory on a national level. He was very active in the American Psychiatric Association. and an ACAP, the American Association of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And in that context, he was the head of a committee with the APA on the misuse and abuse of psychiatry in kids. And he led that initiative early in his career. He also was the head of a committee at ACAP on homosexuality, and that was an act of passion for Bill that was an important element throughout his life. So he was well known nationally on that capacity. He presented in conferences regionally, locally, nationally. He also had numerous publications. And the range of things, of issues that he addressed was as wide as the story we have already heard. He wrote about homosexuality in kids. He wrote about and talked about the consequences of sexual assault in children. He was the only guy in my experience who knew how to do hypnosis with kids, and he wrote about that and taught our fellows parenthetically about it, and was a healer with children who had insufferable migraines and headaches, and he talked about that and was passionate about his efforts to assist those kids. And those were all components of how he was recognized really across the country and even internationally. He had specific passions as well in our greater community and tasks that he took on. He was appointed to the Governor's Council on mental health issues and youth with mental retardation, which Nancy knows very well. He was an attending physician at Echo Glen Children's Center and was the first person in our group that has led with ongoing provision of care to those kids. He was active in juvie, in the juvenile detention facility, and in countless other settings. Throughout this all, there are themes about the work that Bill did. He reached out to vulnerable kids. He provided compassionate care to them. He facilitated care for kids who often had challenges with access to care. Throughout, the elements that I remember about Bill were his gentility, his grace, his kindness, and ultimately, his humanity. The story, I know I have a brief time, but I have to tell this story. It's about a friend of ours, Dennis Anderson, who is a dear friend of mine, who came from the weirdest place in the world, some funny place on the foothills of Mount Rainier, and you know this story. Bill was well-versed in rules and regulations and a stickler for them. And in this case, Bill broke every rule, and he did so gleefully. Dennis was suffering from an earlier pandemic and was about to die and was sick and tired of being in a hospital in New York City. And your dad was aware of this, knew that the nurses would not let Dennis leave the hospital, and secreted him out of the facility, and they went out traipsing around in the city and had a gay old time, which it's a story that I thought was just irresistible in terms of how I knew your father and how I think about him. It was a privilege for him to be my colleague, but more importantly, as my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Up next, I'd like to invite Elizabeth McCauley, who's a professor at UW Department of Psychiatry and Associate Director of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and Behavioral Medicine at Children's Hospital. Please welcome her.
Well, I certainly can't top the folks that have already spoken, but I am really honored, Lizette, to have this opportunity to speak about your father's accomplishments. It's an honor to me, and I think it's an honor to all of us to be here to honor Bill. I think I just want to say that we can only stand in awe of what he has accomplished, and I think, moreover, about how he did it, the grace and just the terrific style. I love that quote about style in which he worked and lived with us. And I share Chris's thought about how lucky we were that he came to Seattle, that he came to UW, that he came to Children's, of all the places he could have gone in the world to live, do his work, and spend his career. I was asked specifically to talk a little bit more about what he did at Seattle Children's, and he did everything. He was, at the same time that he was head of the Division of Community Psychiatry, he was head of the Division of Child Psychiatry, which meant Child Psychiatry for the University of Washington, and the Department of Child Psychiatry at Seattle Children's. Those are both huge administrative tasks, and he did them with grace, with spirit, and I would say with some fun. He also pursued his own personal passions, the things that were really important to him in our field. And that had to do with working with kids who were not getting the services that they needed. He worked in two particular areas. There's others that people might mention. But he worked with children who were experiencing stress and difficulty with pain management. And he also worked with kids who were marginalized. In this work, he was always, and I just couldn't underscore this enough, he was always ahead of the times. It was in the early 80s that he was already forging partnerships with pediatricians to work with kids to manage their stress. At that time, I think we were not focused very much on what stress could do for a child, how a child could experience stress, and also pain management. We were working in separate camps, psychiatry here, pediatrics there, but not for Bill. He pulled everybody together. That was way, way, way before what people have been doing more recently in terms of integrated care. He also, in terms of being, well, just to say some of his official things, in partnership with Mark Smith during his time at Children's, not only was he head of the division, but he also served as the co-director of Children's Stress Management Clinic and of the Pain Service. And eventually, he spent a good number of years being the head of our Consultation Liaison Service. So again, multiple hats. He also focused, as I said, on marginalized youth. And even before anywhere across the country, much less at Seattle Children's, there was ever a notion of a gender clinic or a specialty clinic for sexual minority youth. Bill was out there advocating for effective care, treatment, humanized care for LGBTQ youth. And he did that work both locally, and he was very active, as Chris has said, at the national level with the division or the Association of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. Toward the end of this very illustrious career, Bill spent a considerable amount of time working with his colleagues, and a number of them are here at the Odessa Brown program. And at the Odessa Brown program, he was able to come in and use both his hat as a community psychiatrist and his hat as a child psychiatrist, and to really work in integrated mental health in the pediatric setting. I can see my time is coming. Do you want to keep on going just a little bit more? I just want to really talk about this. As we remember and honor Bill for all the things that he accomplished, and they are quite really astonishing. I just want to say a few words about what it was like, how he did it, the style in which he did it. Carol Rockhill talked with me about the fact that when she was a fellow, a child psychiatry fellow, he really taught her what it was like to do an integrated mental health and pediatric program. That was I'm going to say 20, 25 years before his time, before anybody was thinking and doing that. I talked also with Jack Carr. A couple of these folks were chair of our department while Bill was moving through the department. Jack called out that Bill was a marvelous cook and a wine connoisseur, and said that any meal at the Womack house was just a treat, a joy to attend. And finally, I also talked with Richard Beath, who was chair, again, for a big chunk of Bill's career. And Richard pointed out that he had great appreciation for Bill's devotion to our pediatric missions at Children's, at Echo Glen, and Odessa Brown, and also his dedication to his patients and the degree to which he seemed to enjoy his work all the time. Richard added, I was always delighted to have Bill on my schedule, to realize Bill was on my schedule. I could always count on a fun and enlightened interaction, and that was usually the best meeting of my day. What a bright, generous, kind, and caring man Bill was. I want to end on that theme, the best meeting of the day, because I think that really characterizes how we all felt about our time with Bill. And as Carol Rockhill put it so sweetly, his warmth and laughter are what I think I will think the most about with Bill. I could not agree more. His warmth, his laughter, that smile, he will be remembered for a long, long time and missed terrifically. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Up next, we have Shirley Inabrad, who spent her career as a TV producer at Como. And I think the term, I may be getting this close to right, but maybe not exactly right. In Hawaiian culture, the term, it refers to adopted family, so that's Hanai.
Correct.
And so this is Bill's Hanai, and we are all Bill's Hanai. Welcome, Shirley.
Okay, so I left my home in Southern California in a hurry and all my notes. So I'm going to wing it. I met Bill Womack because he was my son's stress management doctor at Children's. So I met him in probably 1982, I'm guessing. My son had become needle phobic, and I couldn't get him out of the car. Then I got him to the door, and he wouldn't let go of the door handle. So luckily, they paired me up with Bill, and he worked miracles. So my son was able to continue with this treatment for a couple more years. And then when he decided to quit, and the hospital was freaking out, Bill advocated for us and helped his oncologist to understand that he was done. He knew what was happening intuitively, and he was able to quit treatment. My son, before that happened, asked Bill to do the eulogy at his service, because he planned his own funeral at 8 years old. So after that, Bill and I became fast friends, and eventually I got married, had a baby, and we asked Bill to be her godfather. He was the best godfather. He was such a good choice, right? She's over there. Anyway, Bill and Lizette, and then eventually Will, spent many Christmases at our house because he came for Christmas brunch every year for about 20-something years. And the best part about being friends with Bill, though, was he threw his own birthday parties. Oh, my God, the man could cook. And, of course, he was a wine connoisseur, so everything was fabulous. Through my career as a television producer, I tapped into his expertise so many times that we nicknamed him Dr. Soundbite. And then through that, because I was producing documentaries then, and then I started doing town meeting, we had him on all the time. The news people said, hey, that guy's pretty awesome. We need him. I said, yeah, you do. They gave him his own segment on the news. So he was Monday's child. Okay, fast forward a few more years, I'm at KCTS, and I'm asked to do a pilot about restaurant reviewing. And I said, you know what? I want to do a segment about wine, and I want my friend Bill Womack to be Dr. Vino. It was the best pilot. Pat Cashman was the host. It was so awesome. I was so excited. And then my boss got fired. So the show never made it on the air. It was such a disappointment. But knowing Bill Womack and being part of his ohana and him being part of mine was the greatest joy of my family's lives. I'm not getting emotional. Because then I'll start blubbering and, I ugly cry. Anyway, Bill ended up at Horizon House, and then my mother-in-law ended up there, so it was two birds with one stone. It was awesome. So whenever we came home from Maui to visit, then we would spend time with them there. And I just wish that I had gotten to see him during the pandemic before he crossed over. He will be missed so much by my family and myself, and I'm just blessed that he was a part of our lives. Thank you.
And now, so you can see a bit of the work that Bill did in his television career, we have segments from Monday's Child for your viewing.
Good morning. When your child has confidence in herself, she accepts herself and loves herself and others readily. No matter what his appearance or behavior, he's always certain he won't lose your approval and handles success or failure. Self-esteem is a basic foundation for long-term personal health and happiness. Here are some suggestions to give your kids that extra edge. Think about allowing your crawling baby or beginning walker the space to roam freely, exploring and touching under your watchful eye. Baby-proofing the house will require some planning, but you'll reduce the number of times you have to say no. It's okay to start your preschooler and school-age kids with opportunities to make choices. Plan on 20 minutes a day of focused attention with each of your children. Listen to your child intently and give thoughtful answers as if you were talking to your boss. Give your kids compliments all the time. Put a personal ad in the paper with love from mom and dad. Lots of hugs and smiles no matter how old he is, and even if it's hard for him to return it. Look for opportunities to give her responsibilities and real work to help you. Cooking, cleaning, caring for pets. The work has to be age appropriate, and you need to supervise her to make sure of success. Plan on spending more time with your child in activities and spending less money on toys and gifts. It's easy to buy things to substitute for not being home. But remember, your kids want you, even if it's just washing your faces together in the morning. Parents regularly make sacrifices in terms of time, energy, and money, but helping and nurturing the development of confidence and acceptance of uniqueness may be the most precious gift you can make to your child, and it may be her greatest gift to you. I'm Dr. Bill Womack.
Before a child is born, most parents imagine, sometimes in elaborate detail, what he or she will be: ballerina, lawyer, adept at sports. There are always gaps, however, between imagination and reality. Kids grow up feeling inadequate and sad sometimes when their parents don't learn how to accept them. Dr. Bill Womack joins us now this morning to discuss this whole issue and how do kids react to the feeling of not being accepted by their parents.
Well, there are actually two basic choices. Kids can either protect themselves by pretending like they don't care about their parents' disappointment, and they can be accused of being insensitive, or they can be so eager to please that they forget what their real feelings actually are.
So what do you say to parents? How can they suddenly learn to be more accepting?
Well, it's very hard for parents to learn how to accept differences, but the starting point actually is to begin to accept yourself. The more you can actually accept imperfections in yourself, the less likely you need to have your kids be perfect. You want to acknowledge and let go of assumptions. It can be difficult to realize that your children are not extensions of your hopes and ambitions. The hardest of all is when your child is different in personality from either parent. The difference can feel like rejection. You want to correct behavior but not condemn them. You need to evaluate your child's performance and to correct misbehavior and mistakes. Learn to tell her what she's doing right instead of only what's wrong. Teach her to understand the mistake and not that she is a mistake. Don't get so caught up in teaching and guiding that you forget to enjoy your kids. Play with them without hidden agendas and give them hugs and affection every day. Your kid can't change his talents, his physical shape, or his essential nature just because you request it. Uniqueness is truly a gift as well as a challenge.
Love them for who they are.
That's right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The ages 3 to 5 are often called the preschool years, the years before kids begin formal education. Many parents consider this the prime time of childhood because kids are filled with wonder and excitement of their lives. They're physically adorable, and parents are the center of their world. And of course, parents just love to be the center of their kids' world.
Well, Dr. Bill Womack is here this morning to talk about making the most of these years for parents and for kids. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, let's get things rolling here. What makes preschoolers special and fun to be with?
Well, there are three things that are happening developmentally. For the first time, kids are able to take care of themselves. They can use the toilet and dress themselves. They feel great about being able to hop, skip, climb, or sing. Secondly, there's an enormous brain gain. Preschoolers have incredible imaginations and exploding language skills, much of which is funny and makes you laugh. And finally, they're learning about feelings and how to get along with each other and the family. They may even give you a hug to make you feel better.
You know, there's an old saying that the reason a 3-year-old is so adorable is so you don't kill them. They're very difficult to take care of. And how can parents deal with this?
Well, one of the most important tasks for preschoolers is developing social skills. So you want to provide social opportunities for your child with 2 or 3 other children on a regular basis. Look for parents that you enjoy being with. Also, encourage independence in your child. Have him put on his own shoes, pour his own juice, and keep track of his own things. You'll have to help sometimes, but he'll like his ability to do more things. Respect your child's fears. That wonderful imagination can also make things scary sometimes. Pay attention to the television shows and movies she watches and the stories you tell. Give her a nightlight if she doesn't like the dark. Dealing with a willful or wild 4-year-old often requires creative discipline. If you can't play with your truck, you can't play with your truck if you're going to hit your baby sister with it. Don't forget to whisper commands instead of shouting them. Excuse me. The preschool years are filled with excitement, energy, and curiosity. Promoting independence, social skills, and empathy will make them very special for your kids and your family.
Almost got a little extra advice there. Now, we're also going to get you involved in our Monday's Child segments. Dr. Bill's going to tell us more about that.
Starting next Monday, we're going to start answering your questions about child rearing. Maybe you have a picky eater or kids who just can't get along and you need some help. You can write to me here at Como. Send your questions to Ask Dr. Womack in care of Como TV News, 104th Avenue North, Seattle 98109. Be sure to print your name, hometown, and question clearly. We'll be answering your questions during my segment every Monday morning at this time.
The food trucks will be leaving soon, and so if anyone is still hungry, I invite you to go make your order now so that you can enjoy that food. I will just say also that Lizette chose this menu because we knew that Bill would love it. And so if there's anything that you haven't had, I encourage you to try it in honor of Bill. Our next presenter is also going to speak about Bill's work in psychiatry, but beyond the Seattle region. And so please welcome Ledro Justice to the stage.
Well, I suppose what I will do at this...
Can you use the podium? Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, somebody suggested it might be just as helpful for me to throw it away. And considering the stuff that I was going to talk about, which has already been talked about in many ways, thank you. So Lizette had asked me to review a tribute that was written about Bill shortly after he passed. And so a group of us got together and edited some stuff that had been sent us. But Lizette, rather than reading all of that you asked, I think I will spend a moment talking about Bill's involvement with AGLP, the Association of Gay and Lesbian Psychiatrists, which was an organization that was founded by gay and lesbian psychiatrists who were adults, and he was a member of that organization. But he also recognized, as we've talked about, his not only interest in children, but how children develop and how they develop in the context of their families. And there was a lot missing even in the process of educating child and adolescent psychiatrists. And so he, along with Dennis Anderson, who he had helped train both in general psychiatry and in child and adolescent psychiatry, and a few others, Gerald Dabb, who was a child psychiatrist in New York, Rick Pleat, who was a child psychiatrist also in New York, got a group together, and it was a group called Lesbian and Gay Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists. And the purpose first was to develop a system of being able to support one another. And then they said, well, how can we begin to educate our trainees as well as our co-workers, our colleagues? So they began to submit papers to the American Psychiatric Association as well as to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. They use film, and there are enormously important film that I think some have actually been on television. One was about a boy that wanted to dance, and his father was working in a coal mine, and that's what his father wanted him to do, and that didn't work. But it's how that was resolved. Another one was about, and I don't remember the name of it, about a family in which the adolescent son had trouble telling his parents that he was gay. And when he did, he told the brother, who eventually told the parents, and the mom, to use kids' expression, just freaked out. She was very religious, and she had religious quotes all over the house and told him that he should read that. Ultimately, he wound up killing himself, and she couldn't understand how he could have done that. But more than that, she couldn't understand how God had allowed that to happen, that somewhere in there she had to have been very bad. And for months passed before she would even go into his room. When she did go into his room, she found a card for a church, and she went and talked to the minister there. And she was, how can you do this? How can you preach this? How can this is wrong. It's a sinful. But gradually, as she thought and she listened and she related to some of his friends and other ministers, that, yeah, there are those who have this belief in Scripture and those who have a broader view of Scripture. She began to participate in pride functions, in parades, and eventually was presenting some of her ideas to Congress. And I think that's a true story, and out of which people began to think at legislative levels, how can we promote the mental health of those that we see as different? I've helped a friend of mine, Gene Spurlock, write a chapter, and we were talking about differences, and I said, but differences don't necessarily mean deviances. And that's one of the areas of education that we need to look at. That was one of the education issues that Bill talked about. You can be different, but you don't have to be deviant. How much time do I have? Because I'm not good at extemporaneous speaking, but I want to say something else. We've talked a lot about what Bill had done, but we don't really talk a lot about the person. And we talk about his saying fabulous. I mean, he could say that over and over and over again. Or he could say it's complicated. And that was a way of his saying, we're not going there. And he and I did travel together. And one occasion, I would come out to Seattle, but he was telling me that when I was talking to him, he said, well, I'm going to go to San Diego. I said, well, I can go to San Diego with you. And he says, well, I need to think about that. I thought, well, what is there to think about? I've lived in Riverside for the longest. I know where San Diego is. So he called me a few days later and said, okay, you can join me in San Diego. He didn't actually stay in San Diego. He stayed at the Glorieta Bay Hotel, which is on Coronado Island, for those of you who know that area. And so we got there, and the next morning we got up. Well, he got up, and he said, I'm going for a walk. I said, okay, I'll go. No, this is my time. I walk on the beach. Well, I found a bit put off here. I've flown halfway across the country, and so, okay. And for the rest of that week, he would get up, he would go for a walk, he'd come in, take a nap, shower, and we'd go to lunch. And he knew every place to go for good lunch and every place to go for even better dinners. So the next year, we went back to San Diego. And I said, well, I've got to find other things to do than hang around the hotel. So I got a jet ski, and I went out on the... You know, I drove out by a big aircraft carrier that was sitting out there. I said, and it was foggy, and people were passing me and creating waves, and I said, what am I going to do if this thing turns over? But it didn't, and I got back safely. And he finally said to me, okay, you can walk with me, but we can't talk. You have to be quiet. I said, well, I won't say what I started to say, but I said, okay, I can do that too. But I began to realize that that was an extremely important time for him. And ultimately, we began to talk about the effects of racism on our development, the effects of racism on our development, not only as children, and not only as gay children, but as clinicians. How do we deal with the struggles? How do we take the struggles we've had and move into ways to help other people? How do we take that information? How do we take that cognitive process and deal with the affective aspects of being raised in an environment in which we were not acceptable? We talked about that briefly in his Monday's Child stuff. How do you increase parenting? I really do. I could go on like this, but no. I have a very close friend who used to be my Northwestern Mutual insurance agent, and her husband had died, and we get together, and she says, we get together for coffee at Starbucks. Well, actually, we moved that. But she said to me, I'm rotating off of the board of the Montessori school, and I'd like to nominate you to be on the board. I said, for what? She said, well, you've had a breadth of experiences. You've lived in lots of places, including spending 6 months in Australia. And so I've had a lot of, I was a union steward when I worked for the state of California. This is not so much about me, but I'm leading to a point where she says, we have one minority child in the school. The members of the board haven't even talked about what to do with minority children or parents of minorities. They don't know what to do with themselves, and I think you could help them. So that's why we want you in a place where you can spread the experience and the education that you have. And that was something very laudable about Bill. He took his struggles in dealing with feelings of rejection and applied them to his own development, and then began to share that with other people. And for that, I do miss him. And I loved him dearly, as we all have expressed our feelings about him. I better stop before while I'm here.
Thank you, Lidro. Up next, we have another video presentation. This one is even more personal, or personal in a different way, in that it's from a family member, Marshall McDonald, who is Bill's cousin and a noted jazz musician. He's accompanied by his ensemble with Brent Nussey on bass and Makihiko on Osaka drums, and they're performing Angel Eyes.
Hello, I'm Saul Evans, CEO and Medical Director of the American Psychiatric Association. Before I start my formal celebrating of Bill Womack, I need to say, Bill Womack always made me feel good. As he would see me, he would get this big smile, and I always felt I was special. That is the man I'm here to honor personally and professionally, as we all are. On behalf of the APA and our 37,400 members, I want to express my deepest condolences at the passing of Dr. William Womack, his family, friends, and colleagues who were touched by Bill. Throughout his long and distinguished career, Bill Womack set an example for all psychiatrists to follow. He did remarkable work as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, particularly in the area of juvenile justice. He was a champion for the rights and mental health needs of homeless youth, as well as the LGBTQ youth and adults. Bill dedicated so much of his valuable time and energy to APA. He helped us work towards a vision of a society that has us fair and equitable access to high-quality treatment for mental health and substance use disorders. He was very active and engaged in APA governance and the components and held several important positions within APA. Bill served as a member of the Board of Trustees from 2006 to 2012 and was a member of the DSM-5 task force. He was on the APA Assembly, our sort of Congress, from 1999 to 2005 as a representative of Area 5, a member of the Psychiatric News Editorial Board from 2005 to 2011, and spent a number of years on the Assembly Executive Committee. Bill also played leadership roles in allied organizations, such as the Association of Gay and Lesbian Psychiatrists and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. He was a distinguished Life Fellow of the APA, the highest honor given to APA members. It is bestowed upon those who have set themselves apart through a lifetime in service to our profession and the public good. Bill lived up to this honor every day through his words and deeds. The work he did for our patients in the profession will live on through those of us who were lucky enough to know him, to call him a friend. So long, my mentor, friend, and leader. I do miss you, but I also celebrate you for all the work you did, and you truly are in my heart and my mind. It was my privilege to have known you. Thank you.
After that beautiful musical selection, we'd like to invite Susan Trapnell, who's a former managing director of ACT Theater here in Seattle, for a brief presentation. Thank you.
I'm Susan Trapnell, and I have considered Bill to be a good friend for over 40 years. But oddly, as I was thinking about this, I realized that that friendship was made up almost exclusively of conversations in theaters around the city, standing in a lobby with a glass of wine, talking about dance or theater. I met Bill in 77 or 78 when I was running the school for the Bill Evans Dance Company. And one night, this beautiful family of 3 walked in. Bill, Mariette, and Lisette, who was probably 6. And I looked at well, what more do you need to know? But that a man will come in and take a dance class with his 6-year-old daughter? That was enough right there to know that this was someone very special. And they became special with the whole company, some of whom are here tonight, because partly they were such lovely people, but because Bill was so insightful about dance. And he could understand it, he understood and appreciated dancers, and even if he wasn't always the practitioner of note, he was a viewer who could see what dance was about. A few years later, I left Bill Evans and went to ACT Theater as the managing director. And one night I came into the theater and there was Bill in the lobby. So it started up all over again. And he didn't want to spend much time catching up or chit-chat. He wanted to talk about the production. I don't remember what the production was because there were many subsequent conversations about other productions. But he always had something thoughtful and interesting to say about a play, or a playwright, or the design, or the direction. He could see, and he could hear, and he could grasp something in a play and articulate it. And that's a rare skill to have. He was not a sort of thumbs up, thumbs down playgoer. He enjoyed the complexity, and he recognized the intent when the execution wasn't perfect. And sometimes he would just recognize a bad play when he saw one, and he would want to talk about something else. But he let art live and breathe, and it was always a pleasure to talk to him. So after that first encounter at ACT, I proposed him to the board, and fortunately, and we have a board member here tonight, smart enough to know I was right, and they put him on the board, and he became a really important, valued member of ACT Theater. And I even wonder if maybe child psychiatry isn't the perfect training for a theater board. Don't know, but it's possible. He certainly was a mentor to me, and he brought such reason and wisdom to very fraught conversations, both personally and in the boardroom. So I'm getting the evil eye, a loving eye. All I can say here tonight to all of you who know him is to reinforce what we all know, is that Bill Womack was simply an extraordinary human being. Full stop. He had external charisma that we could all see, and internal unshakability that we could all sense. And I know he had internal unshakability because I grew up in Virginia 10 years after he did, and I know the ugliness he must have had to navigate through in order to become who he was and never to lose course. And he had a gift for seeing, a gift for hearing, and a gift for always looking for the positive. He brought intelligence and wit, curiosity and kindness, vision and generosity, wisdom, and quite a bit of mischief to every conversation. He had a sprightly intellect and was a quiet force. It doesn't get any better than that. I am so grateful that I knew him, and I just hope he had as much fun in his own mind as all of us did when we encountered him.
Thank you, Susan. Up next is Lynn Marvette, Director of Development at Flying House Productions. You may also know them familiar as Seattle Choruses. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. I feel incredibly grateful to be here this evening. What a beautiful gathering of friends. What an incredible place to be sitting and enjoying this moment. Now, I never met Bill Womack, but I feel like I know him, and I know I would have liked him. What an extraordinary human being, a life well lived. I really just want to echo what has been said already so beautifully. A life of courage, commitment, and determination. A life spent lifting others up and personally never giving up. This is my understanding of the life of Dr. Bill Womack. So I, as a member of the staff of Seattle Choruses, we have a tagline that we use, and I think it sums up Bill's life quite a bit. Strong voices, big hearts, bold stories. That's how he lived his life. And as you probably know, Seattle Men's Chorus and Seattle Women's Chorus is committed to providing entertaining performances that are also thought-provoking. We love a good time, and we love to be an inclusive place where everyone is welcome. We were founded to support LGBTQIA+ individuals and their allies, and we continue that commitment day in and day out. We build community, we illuminate experiences, we expand inclusion and inspire justice. Bill was an enthusiastic attendee of Seattle Men's Chorus's performances for many years, and as I said, I didn't know him, so I didn't get to experience that. But I love the fact that he supported all of the arts. He was also an incredibly loyal and generous donor to the choruses for over 30 years. I think he first started supporting us in 1988, and he left a very generous bequest, which puts him in the company of a select group of some of our most generous donors. So on behalf of Seattle Choruses, Men's Chorus, Women's Chorus, all the staff and board, here's to you, Bill. Thank you. I celebrate your life, and thank you for letting me say a few words.
Over the course of the evening, we've talked about Bill's career and his work as a patron of the arts and later in his life. But we're going to go back now to earlier in his story. You'll hear see two videos. The first talks about his experience. Well, I'm not going to tell you what it is. But I'll tell you it's Jeff Moster. I'll tell you it's from the University of Virginia, followed immediately by a video made by his daughter Lizette about 10 years ago, which was a birthday gift to him. So we'll watch these two things consecutively. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Jeff Moster. I am the Assistant Vice President of Development at the University of Virginia Health Foundation. On behalf of the university and myself, I would like to thank Lizette Austin for inviting me to say a few words about her father's relationship with the university. In 2017, Dr. Maurice Apres asked Dr. Bill Womack to write a chapter for his book about the experiences of early African American students at the University of Virginia. In that chapter, Bill recounted growing up in an educated middle-class African American neighborhood in Lynchburg, Virginia. At the age of 5, he declared that he wanted to become a doctor. He graduated as valedictorian of his African American high school class at the age of 16. He went on to graduate as valedictorian of the all-male African American Lincoln University in Oxford, Pennsylvania. During the time that he attended Lincoln, the Supreme Court's Brown versus Board of Education verdict opened the doors of all-white schools such as the University of Virginia, although quotas for African Americans and other minorities were maintained. Bill was accepted to the UVA School of Medicine only a few years after the first African American students arrived there. He wrote, "My biggest surprise when I got to the university was that I was no longer expected to be smart. By virtue of my skin, I was expected to fail." Bill found himself shunned by most of the medical students at UVA, who chose not to sit near him or to communicate with him unless it were necessary. He became friends with a small handful of students who shared minority status with him. The only other African American man, a Jewish student from New York, and a woman. Although the dean made some formal attempts to meet with the African American students, the faculty were generally cold. He recounted a painful encounter with a biochemistry professor who declared, "My experience with people like you is that you have a hard time understanding this kind of course." During Christmas break, after his first semester, Bill declared to his mother that he was going to leave UVA. She convinced him to finish his year there, noting that he would find it easier to transfer elsewhere at that point. He then discovered that he had been named to the dean's list. This provided a major boost to his spirits. His feelings of isolation lessened. Although he might not feel supported, he knew that he would not be prevented from achieving academic success. He decided to pursue his degree at UVA in spite of the racism that he encountered on a daily basis. During his final year of medical school, Bill was debating whether he would pursue a residency in obstetrics and gynecology or psychiatry. During his clerkship in OBGYN, he found that he was not allowed to examine white women in UVA's segregated hospital, effectively cutting his experience with patients by half. However, the more progressive chair of psychiatry had noted Bill's skills as a listener and counselor and convinced him that he would make an excellent psychiatrist. Bill wrote that he was the only faculty member at UVA who showed any interest in his career. Bill followed his advice and went on to a very successful career in psychiatry in the Navy during the Vietnam War and then in Seattle. When I encountered Dr. Bill Womack for the first time in 1996, I was a newly hired fundraiser for the UVA School of Medicine. I was assigned to cover a number of states, including Washington. He was listed simply as a 1961 graduate of our medical school, so I called him and asked for a visit. He agreed to meet. Going into that meeting, I had no idea that he was African American, much the less that he had endured so much pain and mistreatment at UVA. Our first couple of meetings consisted of Bill recounting his horrific experiences in Charlottesville. On behalf of the university, I apologized repeatedly for all that he had endured. I could easily sense the pain and bitterness in Bill and knew that my only hope of dispelling this would be to bring him back to the School of Medicine to witness how things had changed. Over the course of many visits in Seattle and Charlottesville between 1996 and 2019, Bill had opportunities to see those changes, to meet African American faculty and students who were proof of the progress that had been made at UVA, and even to read about the appointment of our first African American dean of the School of Medicine. This transformative process is best recounted in his own words from the conclusion of his chapter. He wrote, "For a long time, I was not so willing to look back, to remember, or to visit UVA. It had been such an unwelcoming place for me, so it seemed sort of ridiculous when people from Charlottesville would come to visit me, asking for contributions to the university and the medical school. I finally told one person, 'Look, I'm not interested in helping you with money. You guys weren't nice to me. Why would I want to give you money?' He made it his mission to find a way to change my mind. In 2000, he asked if I would visit the university to speak about biofeedback, one of my specialties. He also said that the university wanted to honor me as someone who had made a difference there. I decided to go. I wanted to see for myself if things really were different for students now. While there, I participated in a roundtable discussion with a group of African American medical students, which was both rewarding and healing for me. I also finally went to Monticello for the first time and developed a more nuanced view of Thomas Jefferson. During that visit, I found something unexpected: forgiveness. What was done was done. None of my UVA difficulties were being repeated now. It was no longer necessary to remain bitter. Attending the 2009 reunion with other pioneering African American students at UVA represented a big turnaround in how I felt about the university. And it was gratifying to receive official recognition of the contributions we had made. Finally, things had come full circle. In September of 2009, Bill announced during that reunion of the first African American students at UVA that he had provided funding in his estate plan for an endowed medical scholarship for African American students. The university will be forever grateful to Dr. Bill Womack for his willingness to forgive. His significant accomplishments as an alumnus and his generosity in providing a scholarship that will assure uncompromised opportunities for African American medical students in perpetuity. On a personal note, I would like to say that the friendship that Bill and I formed over 24 years is one of the things that I value most in my entire career. His big laugh was infectious. His diverse interests and broad perspective made every conversation a stimulating experience. Our long wine dinners were all memorable. Most of all, his example of forgiveness and compassion made a lasting impact on my life. I will surely miss him. Thank you.
My father and I were in shock. We had traveled to see history. All the planning, crushing crowds, and bitter cold for nothing. We missed the whole thing. Why do we deserve to be shut out? Don't they know how much we've done to get here? Especially my father. He grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia in the 30s and 40s. When he was 4, he decided to be a doctor. He excelled in high school and college. In 1954, laws changed, and University of Virginia could no longer legally keep people of color out. In 1957, he became one of the first African Americans to attend UVA. He was not welcomed with open arms. He was not allowed to eat in most restaurants in Charlottesville. He was ostracized by most of the students. Some of the professors tried to flunk him despite his top grades. By Christmas, he wanted to quit. His mother encouraged him to at least finish the year. He went back. In a few months, he had made the dean's list. By 1961, he was a doctor. He'd made it through the gate. 40 years later, he finally went back, invited to speak to African American medical students. I went with him. We all waited for the negative stories, the understandable resentment and bitterness. But they never came. Instead, we heard solutions, hope, and ultimately transcendence. The gates were open if we chose them to be. It depended on whether or not we gave up. We left the gate and walked. We were too far away to see, but we heard his voice and felt the enormity of the crowds and the moment. The next day we went back and stood where we would have been. Later, back in Seattle, we gathered with friends and watched Obama become president. We took back our moment. I want to thank my father for showing the way through the seemingly closed gates in life, for demonstrating that anger and resentment don't open doors. Faith, perseverance, and acceptance do. For showing me that being my best impacts not only me, but future generations. For walking the path of service and compassion. For loving me so much. Most of all, I want to thank him for pursuing his dreams and not giving up, so that the rest of us, including Obama, could have the gates swing open.
Thank you, Lizette. Beautiful words, beautiful testament to your father's inspiration to you and to all of us. Friends, I know we've run over time, but it's been a beautiful night. We're going to take about 10 minutes, and we're going to have time for open conversation or open mic. And I already have 2 people who are signed up, and so I'm going to start the timer. You'll have a minute each. 1 minute, 60 seconds. And I think Mick is up first, and then Mark. And just for health protocols, we're asking you to use these mics. And so, Mick, if you start on this mic, and then Mark, if you start on the second mic, then we can alternate to try to keep everyone as healthy as possible. So thank you all. And thank you to Lucas, our audio tech, and to our videographer tonight, and for the wait staff who are here. So thank you, everyone, for making this possible.
Thank you, Bertrand. Thank you, Lisette.
And the timer starts now.
So I'm reading a letter from George Brenneman, who was Bill's classmate. George is a friend of mine for about 30 years. He's a pediatrician in Lynchburg. He and Bill went to med school together. He was my friend in medical school. We graduated. You've heard most of this story. I don't remember how we connected. I just remember we were partners in the dog lab. Bill borrowed his mother's car, and we were on our way. They went on a 2-week tour for their interviews for internship. When we crossed Maryland, the Maryland-Pennsylvania line, Bill took a deep breath, smiled, and said, "Now I can go to our restroom." George was telling me that the blood banks were segregated, the wards were segregated. Anyways, at every site we visited, Bill's antenna was up. Indelible in my mind was our visit to the Indiana University Medical Center in Indianapolis, which which did not need an antenna. We arrived late in the evening and needed a hotel. We stopped at one. I jumped out of the car and went to the front desk to secure a room. The desk clerk was quite friendly and happy to have a room for me and my buddy who was in the car. We parked, got our luggage, and proceeded into the hotel. The clerk displayed a profound change in attitude, but did not cancel our reservation for a room. As we entered the elevator, though, he said in a loud voice, "Hey, fellows, if you want a room tomorrow night, we are full." Bill thought maybe we should check under the bed for a bomb. George told me that they went to Kansas City, to Chicago, Indiana, Pennsylvania, 2 weeks in Bill's mother's car. George is a Mennonite. He was this big, tall, lanky, very thoughtful, quiet individual I knew from Indian Health Service that is a role model himself, but Bill, for me, was one of my models. And I'm going to end with this. As a mentor, he had to put up with me, as did Chris and others, but his phrase that just has stuck with me is, "Mick, what is your contract with that patient? What is your covenant?" You don't think that you have a connection until you know you do, and make sure you're safe enough to be the connector. So I also bring tidings from juvenile detention, where the nurses said that they hope that Lizette got her cat tower that Bill was building 20 years ago. And they remember his eggnog in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And for those who'd like to speak, if you maybe take a line at the end of the gazebo here, that'd be great.
Can you hear me? Yeah, cool. Lizette? Thank you. Everybody, can we thank her? Please, please. And, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a parallel process, right? That love from what we've seen from your father, who we've all been benefited from, has gone to you and gone to all of us. Correct? Correct. So the funny thing is, or not funny, worked at Seattle Children's for 23 years. Dr. Womack was a mentor of mine, and but the thing is, he never ever said he was a mentor. The best mentor never says, just doesn't say it, right? Give me a little more time. Cool. He's like, all right. He never ever said it. More time. Good. As a man of color, we're Seattle Children's Hospital. Dr. Womack, that man was like, you know what? He was so much smarter than I ever was, ever will be. Guess what? Never, ever used it as a weapon. Ever. He was all about like, what are you going to do? What do you think is right? Always had an open conversation. Always was joyful, humble. Everything we heard tonight, right? And now, doing everything what we're going through in the world, we need more Dr. Womack. Right? All of us are touched by him. And I hope this is the point. It's about power and control. The power and control of intelligence. Like why don't we spread it out? Spread it out as much as we can in regards to making sure that, you know, Bill never, ever, ever, ever made me feel like I was less than. He allowed us all to grow and to be the best we could be. And all that stuff right now more than ever is so important. So the thing is, that ripple effect is going through all of us, every one of us that's here tonight. And so appreciative of Dr. Womack, so appreciative of him and his family, and thank you very much for having us.
Are there others who'd like to offer a brief word of tribute?
I want to thank Lisette and her beautiful family, and I just want to share a wonderful story from a long time ago when I was in the Bill Evans Dance Company, and when I was home from tour, my partner Eric and I would go over to their house on Sunday for have dinner, and Eric had the opportunity of being the teacher of the family of Mom, Dad, and Lisette. And after dinner, Bill would always say, "Now, you can't leave yet. There's a little surprise in the basement. And Lisette has a surprise for us." And so we would go down into the basement, and Lisette would present her puppet show. And the look on her father's face of how in love he was with his daughter and how talented and creative and beautiful she is. And I just want to thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Will, Lizette's husband, Bill's son-in-law. That's right, I won the lottery. 1992. I met Lisette, best moment of my, luckiest moment of my life. And I also got Bill. I just got to say, I miss him so much. I miss him. Okay. I'm a professional crier. Actually, they just hired me for these events to get everyone to cry. Oriana is crying right now, right, Oriana? No, anyway, so I want to say that one of the greatest joys of my life was the last few years helping take care of Bill. Because of my schedule, I was able to go see him a lot in Seattle at his place, and spent a lot of time with him. And the days I didn't see him, I called him. Called him every day, and I called to check on him, but I called because I like to talk to him. He's great. He was great to talk to, and he was always there for me, and people have said so much about him tonight. I've learned things that I didn't even know, and it keeps happening, of course, because Bill was fabulous. That's my speech, fabulous. I know I'm about out of time. But anyway.
I didn't time you.
Okay, thank you. But I just have so many great memories, and they say, oh, the memories will live on. Well, the memories with Bill will live on. I remember everything he told me, and I remember his voice, and I remember his laugh, and I always will, and I think we always will. So I just want you guys to when you think of Bill, the thing I think of is he made everything fabulous wherever he went, whatever he did. So I want you to, as you go through your life, I want you to take that fabulous with you. Take it into every room you go into when you think of Bill, and be fabulous, okay? Everybody needs to say how he said it. Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Lizette. Thank you for everyone who helped tonight, too. Thank you, Gretchen and Bert and all the family and friends. Thank you all for coming.
Since I see no one else standing here, I will move us toward the ending. Except I think there's one. I think there's one more. Are you going to dance? Are you going to dance? As a final word, I'd just like to say, so I met Lisette in dance class in 1999, January 99, and I had no idea that my life would be changed by just walking a couple of blocks from my apartment and, trying to figure out some steps on a stage. And I remember, I didn't know Bill. I met Bill through Lizette, but I saw this car, this little red car, driving around, parked on Capitol Hill, sometimes driving around Capitol Hill, and it said, Boys Fire. I was like, Boys Fire? Like who is that person? What is the story behind this person? And I had no idea that by meeting this beautiful woman here, who was not yet a mother, but was a beautiful daughter of a beautiful man, that I would get access to Boys Fire. Boys Fire felt like, okay, that's like a drag queen with some big hair and then like cleavage and everything. But it's like the most soft-spoken, gentle, funny. It's all the things that we've said tonight. I never would have imagined that the man who drove that car would welcome me into his life in the way that he did. And I am honored to stand here as a black gay man, and to know that there was another generation, like in my parents' generation of black gay men, this man who wasn't only just welcoming and a loving father, but did so much to create a space for me and people like me in the world, to make the world safer and more welcoming, to help other folks see me not as something to be despised or an issue to fix, but as someone to be loved. And the truth is, I think Bill did that for everyone, not as a diagnosis, but he saw us as someone to be loved. and for that we are grateful. Thank you again to the staff, to Lucas and our videographer, and to the catering people who've already gone, and Gretchen and our bartender over there. But thank you all for showing up tonight, and especially great thanks to Lizette and Bill and Lizette and Will and Zane for inviting us into this time. We love you and know that you continue to be in our hearts and prayers, and we send light and love your way for this day and all the days to come. Good night, everyone. Oh, please stay behind for dessert and more music. And dancing. Bill's favorite dessert is what? Strawberry shortcake, and that's what we're having. Yes. So you got to stay now. So again, thank you, everyone. Please stay, and we look forward to seeing you as long as we can stay here tonight. So good night.